thank you guys for coming. You know, I always wish that, like I said, sometimes we got 180 people, sometimes we got 20. You never know. This doesn't sound maybe as sexy as, you know, next week we're going to have an advanced fat loss nutrition seminar, right? And we'll see how many people are here. But this is actually the root. I think that this is pretty much the most important thing. You know, and it may sound foo-foo and corny, but when we get into it, anything that you want to change in your life comes down to the habits that you have in your life, right? In your day, I should say, in your day more so than your life, right? So change your habits, change your results. In pretty much everything, right? I mean, we're going to cover mostly body transformation stuff, but you can implement this in pretty much just about everything, you know, that you do. And at the end, what I didn't put in there, so, you know, what we're going to cover. Hey, why is this the most important seminar, right? Why is this the most important topic? Because it precedes, like, okay, how many reps should I do? You know, what's the best form of exercise? What's the best form of nutrition? Which is the diet that I should be sticking on? What are my macros? Like, all this good stuff. You know, that's great information, but it's all preceded by this. So that's why we're going to cover. It's like, you know, why is it the most important? One, the science behind why we do what we do. I'm very geeky, so I'd love to like do hours on that, but I'm going to keep it hopefully pretty simple for you guys, right? So how to change habits, step-by-step action steps you can take away, and then Q&A. So, you know, one of the main things is like all of these seminars, you know, yeah, it's a great way for me to get information now, but you know, knowledge is just potential power, right? It's really only powerful when it becomes applied. So my key was here is like when you guys leave, right, that you have at least, Tasha's going to hand out, once we get to that point, actual, I'll say some papers where when you go home tonight, you do homework, right? Because the key is like once you get this information, then you take action on it. Now, you know, whether you're going to take everything that I go through today, you know, probably not, but that's okay. The whole point is that you leave and you're like, you have more clarity, right? You have more clarity about this information. Two, you have more awareness of the things that you know you should be changing to get the goals that you want to, and actually doing it. Not like doing 30 things if I cover 30 things, but like doing 1 or 2 or 3. And I'm going to go over that as well. You know, why not taking on too much? So why this seminar, right? Partly, like I said, you know, we're in fitness. I'd like to think that we do a lot more than fitness here, but these are some numbers, right? 70+% is how many people in America are overweight or obese, right? 40+ billion is what is spent on diets and supplements, right? But 19 out of 20 people fail when they get on a diet. And the thing is, so it doesn't matter which one it is, right? It doesn't matter if it's paleo or the zone or if it's this or that or the other. That's the whole point behind it, right? Why do we have more information than we ever have, yet at the same time the failure rate is so high, right? And I think it's a lot of times we're addressing the wrong issue, right? And although I love to speak about, you know, what I believe to be, you know, great nutrition and things like that, I think the range is pretty wide, but we don't look beyond that, right? And habits are what we need to be looking at. Okay, so where does it begin? Pretty much, I love to tell stories because stories kind of ingrain information better, right? So this is a great analogy to me, you know, when it comes to a power plant, right? There's a power plant, there's a river, and downstream in the river there's a village, right? All of a sudden, everybody in the village starts getting sick all the time. They figure out, well, they're putting stuff in the water in the power plant, so we got to do something about it. So they start bringing in people and start cleaning the water, right? It's okay for a second, but then it starts happening again. People are dying, people are getting sick, so on and so forth. Then they decide, power plant pays money, right, to go to the government. They build a dam. Things get better for a while, and then it repeats itself, right? This is the essence of what we do many times where we're like, you know, the nutrition, like these macros or those macros, or I got to switch this with that. Where the truth is, to fix the problem, you have to go upstream and shut down the power plant. That's the only way to do it, right? So we're always like trying to fix these symptoms and clean the water and put up dams and stuff like that. And it only works for a while. There are these strategies where we have to get to the root cause of what's causing it all, right? So always remember the power plant in the village when it comes to yourself. So like this is a great quote that I love. And like I said, sometimes like, ooh, quotes, and external motivation. It works, right? To a degree, right? So words create thoughts, thoughts produce feelings, feelings inspire choices, choices generate actions, action determine habits, habits develop character, character fulfills destiny, and destiny breeds legacy, right? I got this at home, in the office. But what we're covering today is kind of all the way up to here, right? Because everybody wants the results. Everybody wants to change their destiny, right? Everybody wants that. But this is what we need to address. And we're going to address it in a couple of different ways, right? How can we do all that we do? Like I want to first kind of go into habits, right? When you wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth, do you even think about it? Right? So that's a pretty easy task, right? It's a pretty easy task. But then driving, think about driving. Think about the first time you learn how to drive, right? Think about backing out of a driveway. How difficult was that, right? You check in the mirrors, make sure nobody's behind you. Like you got to shift. Like if there's a friend in the car, do not let them touch the radio and turn it on and talk to you, right? Because you got to focus, right? It's like, holy shit, like this is happening, that's happening. Everything's like, shut up, right? So, but then like a year later, the radio's blasting, this person's talking to you, this person's yelling in the background, you're probably texting, it's nothing, right? Like what happened, right? How do we do that, right? And the thing is, the key here is to remember, like we don't just do that with brushing our teeth. We don't just do that with driving a car, right? We do that with a lot of things, like eating, behaving, thoughts, emotions, right? And this is what's really, really, really important. And it brings me to the story of Eugene Pauly. That's obviously not Eugene Pauly, but I love The Sopranos. So the guy was like 70, so I was like, hey, I put a mobster on that. It makes me feel better. All right, so, but here's the kicker, right? This is a person, Eugene Pauly was somebody who was studied a ton because of what happened to him. He had a viral infection, right, in the brain. Well, actually, it went into, I would say it spread into his brain. Killed off a lot of cells, right? The doctor said to the wife, hey, your husband's going to change significantly, right? His short-term memory is gone. It's erased. It's done, right? Life will be completely, it will probably extremely difficult for him. So he pretty much couldn't remember anything longer than a minute, right? And he could remember things 30 plus years ago, but not for anything longer than a minute. So his day, he woke up, it was the same day. Because of that, he couldn't remember where he lived. He couldn't remember. When he was in the house, he could not remember where his kitchen was, where the bathroom was, anything, right? They asked him, hey, because they started studying him because at first glance, like you actually can't tell that there's anything wrong with him. He can carry conversations, very repetitive, right? But he can carry conversations and you don't really go like, hey, there's something wrong with this guy, right? They ask him, hey, Eugene, can you draw the map of your house? No, I don't know, right? All right, Eugene, what do you do when you go and eat? He gets up, goes to the kitchen, takes out the food. What do you do when you go to the bathroom? He goes to the bathroom, right? They start going, how's that possible, right? If there's a big part of his like conscious mind that like can only remember things for a minute, right, and focus. So, don't let him go out of the house because he'll get lost. He won't know where he's living. And his wife starts taking him on 15-minute walks every day, always with him, always with him, always with him. One day she gets up, he's gone. She freaks out. Oh my God, like he's lost, he doesn't know where he lives, none of that stuff. 10 minutes later, he shows back up in the house, watches TV. Right? He doesn't remember that he did it, right? But it became a routine. So what they started realizing is, that habits live in a different part of our brain than where our focus lies, right? And it's actually part of it. Like I said, I'm not going to get too geeky about this, but the basal ganglia, right, has a big part to do with it. Our brains want to be efficient. So because our brains want to be efficient, if you had to think about every single thing that you do in a day, like brushing your teeth and be crazy focused and like driving in a car and what you got going on, and you'd go nuts, right? So when something becomes a habit, it moves to a different part of our brain. So it leaves room for the things that are either very important right? Or put it this way, fight or flight stuff, right? Things we need to be focused on. So when he realized that this guy lived for another 17 years after his injury and lived a pretty, I wouldn't say completely normal life, but he was a happy guy, right? And he literally lived off of habits. For him, everything, he woke up 3 times a day and like went and got breakfast and bacon because he didn't know. But he could function. But it also taught us a lot about, that basically how much habits influence our day, right? How much habits influence our life, right? So here's some cool stuff, right? This is RAS, but I do want to go over this because it's so fascinating, right? This is a study. Now remember, we are the same way, right? But this is studies on rats. They put a rat in a maze. They have a little trap door. They open up the trap door. There's food somewhere in the maze. Rat goes everywhere, sniffs everything, scratches everything, right? This is the first time around. The brain is like focused. Where's the food? Smelling, like touching everything, okay? Now, after a week, they put it through 50, 100 times. All of a sudden, this is the picture of the brain, right? Where all the focus happens, right? There's only a big spike at the beginning, and there's a big spike at the end. The routine in between, it's like it's programmed, right? You're not even thinking about it. It just happens, right? The routine just happens. Now, this is very, very important because just like with us, one day you get hungry, and I'm going to get to that, right? Oh, I got to stop the queue. I'm hungry. I'm going to stop at McDonald's, right? Because I got to fulfill my need, and it's the fastest thing, whatever, okay? And then you get a reward. But you do it enough times, it's programmed. You don't even think about it. You don't consciously go like, oh, I should eat there, I want to eat here, this matches my behavior, right? So this shows you how, when we create a habit, how much less we actually focus on what we're doing. We just do it, automatically do it, good or bad, right? And this is like the key thing. I'll talk a lot about this before we get to the action steps. It's called the habit loop, right? There's a cue, there's a routine, and then there's a reward. So to give you like a couple of examples that's going to make it really simple, but before I go there, why go here, right? Why, like most people, whether it's your family, whether it's for yourself, and you go like, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds, I want my family to eat healthier. Why would you ever go to McDonald's, right? But people never intentionally start and say, hey, we're going to start eating at McDonald's. It starts as, we're in a rush, McDonald's is right there, it's easier, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, let's just do that, right? Then everybody eats, everybody's happy, and it becomes like, instead of once a month thing, it becomes once a week thing, and then becomes a 3 times a week thing, and a 4 times a week thing, right? And then it's exactly that. Like McDonald's actually makes sure that their restaurants are very similar, that people say the same things, right? So nothing throws off that cue, routine, reward, right? They know what they're doing. The fries, the salt hits the system faster than anywhere else. Like they study this stuff, right? So when you think about that, right, you start becoming programmed. You start thinking about, hey, what are the cues that you're doing every day that are damaging, right? Now, perfect habit loop, right? Put on your running shoes, your routine is running, reward is like, endorphin, rush, I feel great. There's a habit loop, right? That's a good one. Since I love The Simpsons, right? Right? 2, but here, check this out though, right? Hunger, eat cookies, I feel, yoo-hoo-hoo. Sugar high. But what if you did the same thing and you had, slow carbs or whatever it was on your list that fits your goals, right? And we're going to get to like preparation and stuff. The thing is that here, right, after the reward, you crave more food and we just loop it. Right here, you feel healthy and accomplished. And you don't have, I would say, energy spikes and then drops and then getting hungry again. Okay? So those two are the same, right? The cue and the reward are the same, but the routine is different. So that's a huge, huge, huge key here, right? So this is a lifestyle example, because I actually had some people hit me up and said, hey, there's some things I want to change. Had nothing to do with exercise. Will this help? Like, yes. Right, cue. You're stressed out, you're depressed. Do I have a glass of wine and start drinking and feel better? Right, maybe I go into an environment where I can talk. Maybe I meet with somebody and go for a walk with a friend. Maybe I go and work out with them, right? The reward is the same. Just the routine is different. But when you do it enough times, you don't think about it, right? It just happens. It just is. Because you're not focused. It's not conscious. Okay? So remember, over this time, like the loop, cue, routine, reward, it becomes more and more automatic. Right? They become intertwined until a powerful sense of anticipation and cravings emerge. Now, what does this mean? After a while, once you get the cue, you already start getting the feeling as if you got the reward. Does that make sense? And then that routine is just, right? It literally, you just do it, not because it's, in line with your goals or anything else. It's just so ingrained and it's moved to a different part of your brain, subconscious, right? And this is where they say habits are destiny, right? When they happen, the brain starts participating in decision making, right? It stops working so hard. So you have to fight the habit, because otherwise it's going to keep happening, right? Or you have to create new routines. So we're going to get to thoughts, right? Everything, I love this saying, like everything's created twice, first in your mind and in the outside world. So this is essentially, how we live our days. I think the exact number is like 88% or something like that. But the point is, like 10% of what we do is conscious, 90% is subconscious, right? 90% of our actions are driven by habits, whether positive or negative. Doesn't matter. The brain doesn't really differentiate that and say, oh, this is a bad habit. I'm not going to do it, right? But the thing is, we have to understand that in physical, emotional, material, professional, financial sense, in everything, right? The big thing is, like when we're going to cover thoughts in a second, like the emotional part is going to be big, how it intertwines with how we do what we do, right? But always remember this picture, because I know most people are like, well, I'm in control of what I do, right? Throughout the day, I'm completely in control of my actions. But you're really not, because most of the stuff that you do, why do you find yourself like going like, holy shit, why did I just do that? Right? It's not in line with what I want to do. It's not in line with the goals that I want to achieve, but I still do it, right? So look at your mind, right? Conscious and subconscious. Conscious is rational, logical, analytical thinking, right? Subconscious is deductive. It's like a computer. So you input the data, right? It's a command. And then the program is the behavior. But remember that, like, whatever you input, right, it doesn't mean that the program is going to run the right way, okay? So if you keep saying to yourself, like, hey, I'm not worth it, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not the other, that's what it gets ingrained into the program, right? Whether it's good or bad, right? So conscious takes information from the five senses, right? Sight, sound, touch, all of those, right? Smell and taste. Reasons, analyzes, and concludes whether it's true or false. Where the subconscious, right, is responsible for storing data and automatic behavior. And like I said, 90% of our behaviors are automatic, right? So these are obviously the different, well, it's not all of them, but think about everything in the day that you hear, say, right? Remember, when you say, not just say to others, but say to yourself, right? What you read, what you see, there's touch involved in there, right? But this is why I talk about environment, why it's so important. People think, oh, environment is just people you're surrounded with. What do you read? How much TV do you watch? Do you watch news all the time and it's always, fear? Do you watch reality TV shows? Do you watch, like that? All of those senses become your environment, and all of those senses become ingrained, right? They become programmed. And sometimes you're like, oh, well, I'm just watching TV, I'm just doing that, or I'm just reading this. Like it doesn't matter, but it does. It does. Right? All of this becomes part of your subconscious. Your thing repeatedly eventually filters into your subconscious mind, right? So that's why you must take conscious control of your own brain, right? Because you're allowing your brain to be programmed unconsciously, okay? I would love if this was foo-foo, but it's not, right? So think of it this way, right? Your conscious mind is the captain of the ship, right? Your subconscious mind is the engine crew, right? They don't see where the ship is going. They only do what the captain says, right? Now, if the captain says, go east, and that means I'm going to bang the ship into the rocks, that's what they do. They don't know any better, right? They're just steering the ship, right? So you always got to see, what is that information that's trickling down? When you're around people that constantly talk about like a fixed mindset or scarcity, and you're always around that travels down, right? And then you get guided into a direction that you don't want to go, And the thing is, like, how do you talk to yourself? That's the thing is, like, a lot of times we talk to ourselves in a way that you would never allow, I would say, somebody else to talk to you, right? About not being good enough, or, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't achieve these things. The thing is, when you do that often enough, it gets programmed, right? There's a stat a little bit later on that's pretty crazy, right? So since Dennis Waitley's a great quote, right? Since we become what we think of most of the time, whatever we're thinking of now, we're unconsciously moving toward the achievement of that thought, right? This is so important, right? It's so important when we talk about habits, because remember, most of our habits come from what we think, what we say, what we hear, right? And then what we see. But those, there's a lot of repetition going on there. So focus, it's crucial, right? It's crucial what you focus on. I always say, hey, you go into focus, you go in the direction of your focus, right? So if I tell you, hey, don't think about the pink elephant, what do you think about? The pink elephant, right? It's almost impossible not to. Like, so the brain really doesn't understand, should I say positive, negative? Like, if you say, I don't want to do that, right? I don't want to do this anymore. You still focus on that, right? Rather than talking about positive, like, what do you want to achieve, right? So the more you dwell on what you don't want, the more of it you create. So a lot of times, like, I'll look for, I would say when people speak, what are the things that they say? What are the words that they're using much of the time? Because it can really kind of bring out whether they're positive thoughts or they're negative thoughts, or if it's, like I said, the programming. People won't even know about it. If you find yourself saying, oh, I don't not want to do that, right? Then never say, like, this is what I'm looking to achieve. Like, this is my goals, right? And it's not, like I said, it's not by coincidence, right? So think about this, right? If we move in a direction of our focus, right? I went, a story when I was in Vegas. I love fast cars and stuff, right? So I went and drove like Lamborghinis and Ferraris and stuff. So the number one thing the driver said, listen, if the car starts going out, look back at the road, right? And as soon as you do, you turn the wheel in that direction. If you look at the wall, guess what happens, right? You go in the direction of your focus. It's the same thing here. So if, I can't tell you how many times somebody goes, hey, I can't lose weight no matter what. Why can't I lose these last 10 pounds? But remember, if you're saying this to me once, how many times are you saying it inside your head? Hundreds, thousands, right? I have a slow metabolism. I'll always be fat. I wish I could fill in the blank of life, of anything, right? I don't have the willpower to get lean. I would work out, but I don't have time, right? See, it seems like something like rational, right? Well, but then you keep repeating it. This becomes your reality. Of course you don't have time if you focus that you don't have time, right? So this is something to think about really, really strongly about. 60,000 is the number of thoughts that we have a day. Obviously, this is kind of like the average, right? 98% of them are the same as yesterday, right? Most of those are negative. 22 million a year. So you take any of those sentences that I just said and you repeat them to yourself that many times. And think about what becomes programmed in your subconscious, right? You're going to move in that direction. Like, even if you start, right, it's kind of like you can say positive stuff, but you're thinking negative stuff because it's so programmed. And this is why it's so important that we cover this today, because awareness is one of the biggest things, right? Hopefully everybody knows this is shaft, because otherwise you got to leave, right? So I call this a self-talk police, but like becoming aware in a sense that, like, when you find yourself going like, I can't do this, right? I just can't do it. I can't lose this weight. That you stop yourself, right? Because awareness is the number one thing, and it's going to be step one, right? So Zig Ziglar called it stinking thinking, right? But it's like you literally cancel it. Cancel, next, switch. You can literally say those words. Right? I'll ask people to say, like, hey, that's silly. Why wouldn't I be able to lose the weight? Right? When you stop yourself and you reprogram and say, that's silly. Why wouldn't I be able to achieve this? Hey, why wouldn't I be able to, pass this test? Why wouldn't I be able to achieve this level of whatever it may be, whether it's business, life, I don't care. Right? Stop yourself. Just be like, that's silly. Why wouldn't I be able to do that? Right? Because it's so automatic. We say it and it's kind of like, hey, listen, if you say that you can't do something, your brain will be done. Why would I look for possibilities of something I decided I cannot do? Right? So imagine what we just said with the words of focus, but what if we, like, remember, like, the things that I just said are focus, but what if we said, hey, how can I burn fat and enjoy the process? What can I eat this meal that will help me burn body fat? Right? I'm using examples and obviously in fitness and exercise and stuff, but, you know, how great am I going to feel when I finish my workout? Today at the end of the boot camp, right? That's what I asked. I say, listen, how do you feel right now? Right? You feel tired, but you feel accomplished. Everybody's like, yeah, I feel awesome. I was like, hey, when you came in, because I'll tell you what, I didn't feel like doing boot camp today, right? But how did you feel before you came in, right? Sluggish, stressed out, right? So the cue was, I'm stressed, right? Some people will sit on the couch, watch a movie, and eat pizza. That's the routine. At the end, they'll feel a little better, but then the cycle repeats itself, right? But hey, maybe I felt stressed out. I still went to boot camp, or I still went to training. At the end, I felt accomplished, different routine. Right? Which habit do you create? So, but it starts with this, right? If you go, my metabolism is getting faster every day. Even though maybe you haven't lost the pounds that you want to lose, right? But it's like, hey, you know what? My metabolism is getting faster every day. I'm eating better. I'm eating better than I did last week, right? I'm unstoppable. I love myself. I'll do this. If you kept saying that, like that's the thing, is like most people go, oh, that's really foo-foo. Here's the thing. When you say it's really foo-foo, guess what? Where's your focus going? You're not going to do it, right? It's impossible. So, leads us to the performance day strategy, right? I actually got this from Mark Verstegen, which was awesome. It's awesome. Every Day is Game Day. It's an awesome book. So we kind of combined a bunch of things together. But, right, we're going to start with this. Preparation, like everything that we talk about, right? You think about how much you prepare for your success, right? So most people spend more time planning a party, studying a newspaper, or making Christmas lists than they do planning their lives for success, right? One of the speakers, and somebody I just met, Jeffrey Gitomer, he said, hey, all stress and anxiety, you can reduce it so much by just being prepared. Just being prepared, right? If I came up here and I haven't gone through hundreds of books or even just read multiple books before I put this together and whatnot, I'd probably feel more anxious and stressed out. Maybe it's not taking it all away, but guess what? Right? You get prepared, you know your stuff. Same thing, what if you're prepared for the week? What if you're, right? I made that an example, obviously, because preparing yourself for success with nutrition, but also preparing yourself for success here, right? So step number one, right? So I'm literally going to go through steps, right? Remember that loop that we talked about, the habit loop. So becoming aware of that a bad habit occurs, so you don't, usually I'll just say, hey, don't try to change it off the bat. The first 3 to 5 days, I love journals. I love people finding out about themselves and what they do. So don't try to change it. Take a journal index card, and when it comes up, write it down, right? What is the cue, right? I get stressed out from this, right? I'm tired. My friends ask me out, right, for a drink. That's the cue. I feel lonely. I feel bored, right? So think about what triggers, right? It could be visual, so commercials, candy, right? There's a lot of stuff. Hey, I was like really hungry the other day. We were at the Lululemon Summit and it had all these, it had good stuff too, but like right in front of me were like these desserts. And I was just like eyeing them, like, right? But same thing, like you see something, is at the time of day, like you always kind of, you always get down and then all of a sudden you got, you're in a cafeteria, there's no good food, you're not ready for it, guess what you're going to do? And then it creates a routine because after a while, it's not that that's what you want to do, it's just what you do, right? So it could be people and emotion. Now this is big, that's why I talk about environments that you're around. Do you get around people and all of a sudden you get in a bad mood? Or you get around people and it's always the same people where you do something, like maybe you're trying to eat right and it's like, hey, really? We're all having pizza, right? And they influence you, whatever it may be. Thoughts of boredom, anxiety, words are big. Sometimes people become emotional at a word that somebody says to them, right? And that triggers like, oh, I feel bad about myself. I'm going to make myself feel better by eating sugar, right? Then think about how you felt when you completed a habit. So the reward, like fulfilled, calm. A lot of times, like for instance, with smoking, right? Stressed out, smoke a cigarette, feel calm, right? But it starts, obviously, it starts a loop. Did you feel significant, right? Did you get stressed out and then yell at someone and then you felt powerful and significant, This is a big thing when it comes to, like, for instance, our kids and stuff, right? So rewards can range from food, drugs, physical sensations, emotional payoffs, like pride, right? Self-congratulation. Like sometimes we'll do things, to feel better about ourselves, but we'll down somebody to do it, right? These can all be habits. These can all be habits, and it starts with awareness. So step number 3, we're actually going to kind of get to it a little bit later on, but really is, add the competing response. So the new routine behavior kind of changes the old one, right? So we know the cue, we know the reward, right? So if I'm stressed out and I smoke, we're going to try to replace that. We're going to replace that, right, with something else. Go for a run, right? You get endorphin high, you feel better. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, right, but that's how it starts, right? You get this cue, you become aware, you change the routine, and we start ingraining that routine, right? So that's number 1 step, awareness precedes change, right? This is so Tosh, you hand out the, creating the it statement. The thing is, like, I've gone over this so many times, and the majority of the time, most people don't do it, but the truth is, like, everything in your life, if you don't find that deep reason why you do the things that you do, right, it really becomes hard to push through hard times. So the it statement, right, is your why, is as low as 5 words. I actually tell you what my one is, but it will guide every decision action over the course of your performance day. It provides the context for everything you do or choose not to do. Right? Because many times, like I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to do this, I want to do that. And it's like, what is the purpose of it? Like the deep, deep, deep purpose of it, right? What actually excites you and fuels you for the day? Like, I'm talking about deep stuff, like mantras, right? So, like we said before, if we continue to see ourselves in a negative light, our subconscious will kind of like guide us to perform like that. So we have to start digging deep to find, like, what is it, like the truth and reality, right? So we want it to be positive, right? But we want to find something that we can latch onto that's really, really important, that's going to drive us and fuel us through whatever we have to do, right? So, you could call, your it could be your why, right? But I like the it statement. Now, what you guys got, before we go there, so, mindset is the number 1 thing. So think about it, right? You can work out, I don't know, let's say you work out 5 days a week and it's, at the gym for 2 hours, right? Most people are not, but like that's 10 hours a week, right? Mindset is the one thing that 24/7, right? 24/7 you can influence it, right? So you guys don't have to, do that right now, but I wanted to give you guys a sheet so once we go through it, you can know what we're doing, right? So our current reality will define our future if we allow it, right? So if you think about this, world-class athletes remain that way as long as they keep the world-class habits, right? If they start losing those world-class habits, over time, you're going to start seeing their performance drop, period, right? Right, but the thing is, like, to be able to do that, you must be guided by a deeper reason, right? And the thing is, it's got to be more than, like, I want to put on 10 pounds of muscle and lose 20 pounds of fat. That's not deep enough, right? That's the breakthrough. When you're able to govern all your daily action and decision by whether you align it with the it statement, like with what matters to you, see, that's what's called anchoring. Like, everything that you do, you know what you're doing it for, and it's like it makes you emotional, right? Because it matters that much, right? And that's one of the big things of being a high achiever. So what I gave you guys, and here's the thing, right? This is a great way because it kind of guides you. A lot of times I've done this, in my coaching session with business and training and all these different things. And if you don't give anybody guidance, it's hard to, like, come up with it. But you can use any words, you can use anything, right? So there's actually words on sheet number 3, but what are the 10 words that are most meaningful to you, right? So, and then after that, we circle the 3. So you can see that I create a statement that tells a story about living your life in the best way possible, and then enter your it statement here. So I'm going to move forward because it pertains to this, right? So these are the words that, you can pick. It's like you can pick from any word you want. But this is a really good, I would say, kind of choice to get a feeling for, what you can use. Because sometimes people go like, man, what are the words? And then you start reading them and you go like, okay, this makes a lot more sense, right? Once you create your it statement, so I'm actually going to flip forward to mine, right? And I took, it was not like a 5-minute process. I really, like, thought about this, right? So the 3 that stood out, and I would say that there's more than one statement that fuels me. But this is, when I was going through this exercise, this is what I came up with. Personal best, family, and freedom, right? So I'll bring my personal best every day so I can build a legacy through my passion and provide freedom for my family and myself, right? So my it statement is bring your personal best to build your legacy and family freedom, right? And the thing is, you can put this stuff on pictures, bands, laminate it in a wallet, right? But the thing is, like that fuels me. Like, I know why I do what I do. I know why I can work 20-hour days if necessary. This is the stuff that gets me through, right? So that's where you can see, right? You pick these words, and like really, like I said, take time. Don't make it a 10-minute thing. It's more important than that. Now, here's the intention statement, right? This is the cool part about it, right? So not living in alignment. What are the disadvantages and advantages of not living in alignment? I truly hope that there's not many advantages, if any, not living in alignment. But see, the thing is, when you start writing this stuff out, you know what it does? When you find you're like, hey, this is the deep reason why I do what I do, and you start writing out the disadvantages of not living, advantages of not living in alignment, and it's like, there's none. Okay. That's powerful. So the things that I'm doing are not fueling who I want to be as a person, character, integrity, right? Who I want to become. And that's huge, right? And then write out living in alignment. Disadvantages, advantages. There might be some disadvantages, like, it's like, hey, I'm not going to go out and party as much, but hey, maybe that's not even something that you truly want to do anyways, right? The key is, I promise you this, if you guys really actually do this tonight, right, it will give you more clarity than you've ever had, right? Because it's so easy to be like, okay, this is just going to change my life. No, like, you're digging deep and filling this stuff out will. It can. One of the things we come back to now is setting goals, right? And I think most people are like, oh, yeah, I've set goals before, right? This is our process of setting goals, right? I call it the most powerful goal-achieving formula in the world. And there's 10 steps. Like, there's 10 steps to this. But if you truly go through it, like, you almost have a blueprint for, what your day should be like, affirmations and things like that. So set specific goals. Now remember, like, you may have a lot of goals in life, right? You can set goals in different areas. You don't have to go and break everything down and set 100 goals. But specific goals means it's not like, if you say, hey, I want to lose weight, that's not specific. I want to lose fat, that's not specific, right? Specific is this much, or even if it's a look, but there's got to be some type of, well, we're going to get to 2, right? So it can be measurable. So we have to set specific, right? I want to be able to, trap bar deadlift 500 pounds. I want to be able to lose 20 pounds and have 8% body fat. I want to be able to, right, work 10 hours less a week and make 30% more, right? And it's like numbers, specific stuff. So that it's real, right? So that it's real. Number 2 is it has to be measurable, right? Measurable can be, tape measure, body fat percentage, scale. Like, personally here, I like even visually, right? You keep taking pictures. Hey, you might have lost 4 pounds of body fat and gained 3 pounds of muscle. It'll be a 1 pound difference, but you're going to look a hell of a lot different, right? Because those are the different, so that's why I'm saying, what matters to you, right? What matters to you, and what can you measure? Set big goals. I say this, you know why? Because I can't tell you how many times somebody said, hey, Luka, this is what my family or my friends said is realistic, right? It's not their true goal. It's not letting go of all limits. It's just, this is what's realistic. Now, number 4, there's realistic deadlines, yeah? But what is realistic? What does that word even mean, right? If you asked 60 years ago that there's going to be, a plane that's going to get you from London to New York in 4.5 hours, and one was Concorde, like 2.5 or something like that. That wasn't realistic. Lights weren't realistic at one point in time, right? That's the thing, what's realistic? So the bigger you set your goals, the thing is, the bigger your goals are, the more it fires you up. Does it fire you up to, set a really, really small goal? That doesn't inspire anybody, right? Big goals inspire, right? Setting realistic deadlines. All that is hey, Luka, can I lose 30 pounds in 30 days? You can, possibly, right? But that's not realistic, especially if we want to make a lifestyle change and keep it off, right? So when we come to realistic stuff, it's only about deadlines. but not about goals, right? Set long-term and short-term goals. So long-term is ultimate body, ultimate career, like the job, the amount of money I want to make, this, that, the other. I mean, you look at any area of your life. What do I want my relationship to be like, right? What do I want my perfect day to like? It's the ultimate, right? And then you break it down to like 1-year goals. From 1-year goals, you go to weekly. Stuff that you can measure, right? So whether it's performance stuff, it might be bi-weekly, weekly measurements, right? If we're doing like, I would say assessments of performance, 4 weeks, right? We do a 4-week cycle and test, right? Daily goals. So this is what we talk about, right? Daily goals, habits and behaviors, right? And then beyond that is the goal to continuously do your best, right? So that could literally be your mantra, right? But most of the time, most people do not break this stuff down like this. And I'll tell you, every single time, not only with myself, all of my clients, our clients, the more in detail all of this is, the better everybody does. I have statistics on this. Like, there's never been a person that's had very, very fuzzy goals that has, like, accomplished huge things compared to the people that had very clear goals, right? That was just a saying in between to break it up a little bit. All right, so focus and prioritize on your main goal. So let's just put it that way, right? If you're scattered all over the place and it's, hey, I want to, I deadlift 300 now, I want to deadlift 600. But I also want to lose 20 pounds, but I want to build 5 pounds of muscle, and I want to train for the Tough Mudder, right? And a bunch of other stuff. Like, those are very, I would say, scattered goals, right? I mean, and the thing is, you can take that into any area of your life and go like, hey, are your goals competing, right? Are you putting in a little bit of effort here, or are you like really focused on your main goal? So if your main goal is, hey, I want to get leaner and healthier, all right, that's it. Let's focus on that, right? Why do you want to achieve your goals, right? Attach emotional reasons to your goals. So that's that why, that's that mantra, right? So versus going like, hey, I want to slip into a swimsuit. Okay, but why? Right? So I can be more confident, so I can have better relationships, so I can, right? Think about like the deeper you go with this, and these are the things that are tough. Like, I'm not going to give you any like, I would say, there's this shortcut. Yeah, like, these are tough. Like, anytime you got to look at, I would say, your deep emotional reasons, and you got to look at yourself and kind of like stand up and say, hey, this is really why I'm doing this, right? It's tough. But the thing is, when you do, you break through. Because like now it's really, when times get tough, like you have an emotion attached to it. And it's like it'll fire you up. Because it doesn't fire you up enough, you're not going to want to push through, right? Always keep your goals in front of you so they stay on your mind, right? You would not, I don't know, like I always have things written out at home in the office. Sometimes it's sticky notes. They're not like looking great, but I also have laminated cards with my mantras. I have stuff when I come in my office first thing in the morning, right? There's a thing that says, what is essential? What is essential? It's like, that's what I see. And I determine, like, what are the essential things that move my happiness, relationships, career, fitness forward, right? But you got to keep that stuff in front of you. Keep it on the fridge. Do you have it at work? Right? Do you have it in your pocket, in your wallet? My wallet, I have goals, right? Keep it in front of you, because you're always like, man, you know what? I'm tired, but this is important. Picture the kids with your mantra written on top of it. Is that going to fire you up? It better fire you up, right? And number 10, mentally visualize affirmation as if they've already been achieved, right? So if I ask you, what's your favorite car, right? You don't see a word. You see the car, right? Hey, what's your perfect body, right? You close your eyes and you see the body that you want to have, right? There's a reason for that, right? And plus, most people are very visual. So when we start visualizing things, it's part of what we talked about, right? Building into the subconscious, right? What you see, like it's already there, right? Because the thing is, the mind kind of doesn't understand future and past, right? It understands now. So if you think about stuff now, it's like it's going to essentially think it's real, right? So creating your performance day. We're covering, like I said, the things that we're going to touch on today is like mindset, nutrition, movement, recovery as we go through this day, right? It could be a lot more. Like I said, it could be a lot more when it comes to habits. But, how do you create your performance day, right? Like this is huge, right? The morning ritual. And like, ask yourself right now, what is your morning like? Do you actually have a ritual, or is it like you don't know what you do? You just kind of get up and it's all the same all the time, and it's not in line with creating the best type of day, right? But that's the time when you're most control of the day, right? That time. So if you think about it, right, morning and evening are kind of like two bookends, right? That you have control over the most. I mean, because if you go to work, sometimes you lose control as far as what you need to do, boss calling you in, meetings, things like that, right? You kind of lose some control there. But morning and evening, you can control it completely, 100%, right? And the morning ritual is powerful because it gets your day started, right? I would say that probably the most productive thing that I've ever done is, and that was tough, was like to create a morning ritual, like an actual ritual that I follow in the morning. Like get up no matter what. Like for me, my little Amazon like sunrise alarm clock is my cue. I get up, I don't care what it is, I walk. And I walk and I have a little bag with me. I have 2 books. Halfway through the park, I stop, I read a book for 20 to 30 minutes. And it's always good, positive stuff to get my day started. I come back, I drink tea, then I start my content at home in my office. Like it's clockwork, right? So this is an example of a morning ritual, right? Now here's the thing, and I'm going to get back to this at the end, right? You don't, like, if whatever point in time you are right now, you don't want to change like 100 things, right? If you're going to change too much, it'll be overwhelming, right? And like studies show that, if people try to change more than 3 habits at once, the success rate is about 7%. So that's less than 1 out of 10 people, right? 2 habits at once, about 30%, and 1 is 87, 90. So basically, you change 1 habit at a time, right? 9 out of 10 people can do it. But there are things called keystone habits that you change 1 habit, it can start changing a lot of things around, right? I'll get to that in a little bit. But this is just an example, right? In the morning, so morning ritual, we're covering those 4 things. Mindset, visualize your performance day. Take out your mantra card, right? I'm always reading for 30 minutes in the morning, but start with 10, start with 15. I also like audios. Love if it's raining outside, I'll do audios or read at home. Repeat your it statement and visualize benefits of living it. All right, so you start off the day positive. Now remember, right, if you get up and everything is neurotic, like you get up and it's like, oh, I got to make food, right? Your day is going to be like that, right? Your day is going to be full of stress because you started with stress. So movement prep, whether it's, depending on who we're working with, it's like, hey, if you got to really work on your hip flexors and tight thoracic spine, here's a 3 to 5 minute, 2 to 3 drills that you can do in the morning and foam roll a little bit. Gets the blood flowing. You just feel better. You're not as stiff, right? Nutrition, drink 16 ounces of water. Let's change, for a lot of people, hey, just changing the breakfast, right? Me and Cody were just talking today about, in the video, majority of people that come in when we start looking at their meal plans is just carbs in the morning. Oatmeal, cereal, donuts, this, that, and the other, right? So if we can just change that into a super smoothie. It's fast to do, spinach, blueberries, a little bit of banana, whey protein, maybe some almond butter, right? I'm just throwing it out there. But that's easy to do. It's like takes 3 minutes to do, and we've changed your habit in the morning of getting starchy, sugary processed stuff that shoots your insulin levels up and then you crash, right? And it's not doing anything for you, right? Take a multivitamin, fish oil. Recovery targeted breathing. We talk about breathing a lot, right? So a lot of people get up in the morning very, very high strung. If you're looking at email and stuff like that, do breathing drills. Get more parasympathetic. Bring yourself down before you start the day, right? So you're not throwing fingers to people in traffic right off the bat because that will not help your day out, right? So this is an example, morning, right? Late morning, same thing. Look, how long does it take you to visualize your performance day and read your mantra? 30 seconds, a minute? Is that a good investment in your day? Is it a good investment in your day to go over your goals? Man, right? Makes you start. Because remember, you're attaching your goals to what? Right? You're attaching your goals and mantras to something important. Right? Hey, I'm working harder so I can, so we can go to Disneyland with the kids. Right? That fires you up. Right? You get emotional when you look at the pictures. Right? Have a movement break. Most people, like I said, that we work with, hey, tight hip flexors, glutes aren't working, bad posture. Just do a movement break. Maybe you can stretch at work, maybe you can't. But there's a lot of things that you can do even on a chair, right? Work on thoracic mobility, chin tucks, things like that, right? mid-morning fueling and lunch. So I'm not putting in what you're eating, because like I said, that's a whole another story. But if you're prepared versus the eating in the cafeteria, 2 hard-boiled eggs, a salad, whatever it may be, whatever is part of the plan that you're working with. Hydrate and recovery might be trigger point therapy. So you got a cross ball, break up your piriformis or something like that, right? But if you have a ton of problems with certain pains and stuff like that, this whole thing, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? Doesn't take a lot. But the changes it'll make in your day are humongous, right? There's a saying that says, hey, all the big moments in your life happen from the small moments that you do every day. Right? It's probably one of the most powerful things I heard, right? Afternoon ritual, quick check on progress of daily goals. Hey, have you been achieving what you've been trying to do? 30 seconds, right? Repeat your statement. Go over it. Start ingraining it. Let's start changing those 60,000 thoughts in your day. Still, movement break, posture check, mid-afternoon fuel, maintain hydration, so drink your water. So I don't understand what naps are, so this is not my performance day. But, hey, naps are great. It depends. You're coming home from work, take a nap, put your feet up for 20 minutes. Relax. Chill. Bring yourself down a little bit. Maybe do breathing drills. Like I said, these are examples. Like, we'll build performance days for every person. Sit down with them and go, hey, this is what we're doing. Right? Evening, right? Transition mentally from work to recovery. So this is actually, something that's big for me. I'm always on. Right? If you're always on and you come back from work and you're going home to your kids, your wife, your husband, whatever it may be, and you're constantly on and thinking about everything and not being present, right? This is something that really, really matters. This is something that actually done with a lot of people, right? Drive home, sit in the car, do your breathing drills, then walk in, be there. Be there. This is huge, right? Because like being there, but then all of a sudden you're thinking about what you got to do the next day and this, that, and the other. That's not being present. That's not living life. And it stresses you out too, right? You become neurotic about it, right? So dinner and pre-bedtime fueling, stay on track with hydration goals. I'm big because I had sleeping problems not because of anything other than my brain just constantly being on. So there's a ritual that I do at night, right? Not these last 2 weeks because I've been working too much, but most of the time I do, right? There's a ritual I go through where I sleep a lot better, right? So imagine it, right? At the end of the day, if you had a checklist, Word document, journal. I love, journals are probably the best. It's your checklist. Hey, did I get 8 hours of sleep? Did I complete my morning ritual? Check. Ate breakfast? Check. Fueled mid-morning? Posture? Check. Check it off, right? And at the end of the week, you're going to have basically a picture of, hey, how compliant was I with what I wanted to do, right? Was I 30% compliant? Was I 50% compliant? 80? Right? The thing is, if you're 30% compliant, it means that maybe you have too many things that you've added for yourself to do. It might be a little bit too much, right? Because like I said, it's all about progress. It's not about instant transformation. Like, this is the perfect day. We work up to it, right? You don't come in and go like, hey, I'm going to give you the hardest training session of your whole life as if you're already an elite performance athlete, right? We work you up to that. So I did ... because, like I said, this can be your checklist. What are the things that you want to change, right? So, too much too soon. The magic question. So this is what I'll ask people when I sit down with them to determine if their checklist, their performance day, is actually what they should be doing, right? How confident are you that you can do this 85% of the time? On a scale of 1 to 10. If the answer is 9 or 10, we keep it. We keep it, we track it, we follow up, weekly or bi-weekly, right? If it's a 6, 7, right, we're going to start taking things away until it's a 9 or 10. Because otherwise, if you're not confident that you can complete it, right, belief is, I'm going to touch on this a little bit, right? Your belief in what you can do determines a lot of what you can do. Like with kids learning and things like that. If they believe that they can learn it, guess what? They study more, right? If they don't believe that they can do it, they don't go after it. So it's kind of like the self-fulfilling prophecy. All right? So it's a great tip of giving somebody too much. And it's like, you should do this, and they don't believe they can do it. Give them enough to where they believe they can do it and build on it. And it's the same thing here, right? Because it's so easy for me to say, okay, this is your goal. You know what? You should read 3 hours a day, right? You should train 6 days a week. You should do breathing drills, this, that, the other. Your macro should be this. Your calories should be this. I can create the plan. How many people are going to stick to it? 95% won't, right? So then it's not the perfect plan for you. It's the perfect plan for the person that has no stress, no anything, and can stick to any habit they want to, right? So this is a question you should ask yourself right now. Maybe right now you're doing too many things and you're not successful because of it. And all it would take is to bring it down a little bit, be successful. Because remember, success is a habit, the feeling, right? If I go like, hey, by next week you got to change 10 things, and you change 3, are you going to feel successful? 3 out of 10? Maybe in baseball, but right? But you feel unsuccessful. You feel like you failed. But if I give you 1 and you actually do 2, you're winning. You're a champion. Okay, let's build on that. I want to build on the feeling of success, on the feeling that you can do it, and not on the feeling that you can't. Like, oh, I'm so smart. Here's all these things that you should be doing. All right, so that's one of the most important things, one of the most important questions you can ask yourself right now with what you're doing. Right? Maybe you took on this meal plan that's like it's perfect, right? You eat this many calories, your macros are like this, macro rotation diet, but all this stuff. Looks great on paper. Are you confident that you can do it? No. Okay, let's wean it back. And you'll have better results. These are just some. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that we could dig into here. But some important things as far as like habit change, right? These are all, I would say, stats and things that help, right? Joining a group where change being possible is a part of the thinking, right? I always like to obviously be one of the main things that, like, when we train here, we don't just train. I'm always talking about possibilities. I'm talking about abundance. I'm talking about how you can, belief, right? Because this is such a huge part of it. Now, if I surround myself with a group of people that go like, it's not even worth it, right? No matter what I do, you won't get in shape. And if you got 20 people saying that, are you going to, right, what is going to happen to you? Are you going to be the one person that's like, no, we can, right? It's tough. Like, you take on the group. But if everybody is like supportive, if everybody's like, yeah, you can, sure you can. I did it too. I got stuck. I had a plateau, but I could do it. You can do it, right? That environment breeds success, right? Because it becomes a culture, right? So building your belief by accumulating a small number of victories, and that's what I just said, right? Rather than having these humongous wins, right? It'll be the same as, like I said, you're looking to score home runs, but truthfully, you should be just getting hits. You can get a lot of hits, and every once in a while you're getting a home run. But the hits are what create success, not the home runs, right? So remember that success in one area of life affects success in other areas. And I talk about the keynote habit. So a keynote habit is something that when you change, other things around it start changing. So exercise is one of the top keynote habits, right? You start training, and like without even working on it, your nutrition gets better. Right? And all of a sudden, like, you sleep better. And all of a sudden, right? There's a lot of different things that happen. Like, your mood is better. Right? So always think about keynote habits. It's huge. But it helps you, like training here, overcoming adversity, overcoming challenge. Right? And training helps you with career, relationships, anything. Right? This is a big one, right? Don't beat yourself up when you lapse in willpower. Right, if something falls down, right? So softly acknowledge the slip and confirm that you'll get better over time. Right, that's another thing, like, when studies of all successful people is everybody hits, I would say, kind of like roadblocks. Everybody fails. The key is to assess it, like why, what happened, and create a if this then that strategy. All right, I acknowledge like this happened. All right, now next time this happens, if that happens, I'm going to do that. Right, that's part of preparation. And because the thing is, as you keep, climbing up the ladder of success, whatever that may be, there's always the next obstacle, right? What was tough last year, it's a joke this year. But there's always something else, right? There's always the dragon to slay, right? So anticipate and plan for times where your willpower may be challenged. Like, you will know this. If you're like, every time for lunch, coworkers say, do this, come with us, go for a drink, and then, right, an hour later, I've had, 4 glasses of wine or 4 beers and, ate this and this and that, right? So that's anticipation. You can get prepared for that. Think about all the times in your day in your week that something happens, right, that you can get prepared for. So break room cookies and things like that. I mean, we could list a lot of things. But more than anything, it's like these are each one of you has a personal, I would say, cue, a personal routine, a personal reward, and things that you can get prepared for, right? And each one of you can change it, right? So I end with, be your own hero. Yes, right? But it's true. Like certain things are simple, and like I said, you know, I could go into the science of it for hours, but this is like a simple 3-step process. If you do it, things start to change. If you don't, nothing changes, because there's no magical wand or like one thing that, you know, will just change everything. It won't. It takes work and it takes building it up. But a lot of this, if you implement it and if you understand, like, hey, you know what? If you fail, it's not a failure, it's a lesson. Just prepare for it next time. Anticipate it, right? Have a plan, right? Create your day, like Monday through Friday and even a weekend, right? But create it. And it doesn't, like, those checklists don't have to be, it could be like 1 or 2 things in the morning, 1 thing in the afternoon, right? 1 thing in the late afternoon, 1 thing or 2 things in the evening. If you're not doing any of it now and each one of those you feel confident that you can achieve it, you're a 9 and 10 out of 10, yes, I can do this. Like, do it for 3 weeks and see how you feel. See what you've accomplished with training, with nutritional changes, with work, with getting extra work done that maybe you're not doing right now. Right? Starting to get rid of a habit that's really kind of destructive to your goals and how you feel. Right? This can change it. This can really, really change it. All right. Now, you know, if you have questions, if you have specific questions, I know sometimes it's tough to ask things like that, but if you have any, because when there's no questions, I feel like I've done such an incredible job that you guys just know exactly what you need to do, which makes me feel awesome, but I don't know if there's ever not any questions. So do any of you have any questions about any of this?
You're going back to the too many things on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
You got too many goals. Okay, so my biggest one is I've been trying to quit chewing. I want to quit chewing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one of the biggest ones. My subconscious mind says I need that chew. But I also want to be lean. I want to be at a certain weight. I want to be 185 pounds. So how does that kind of fit in? How can you do that and still achieve your goal on those two?
Well, put it this way. Number one, like, you can work on multiple goals. I'm going to go ahead and say that chewing probably is not helping you with your goal either. You know, we could talk about why and why not, but you know, if that's a big, like, here's the thing, right? I look at things, stress. Imagine like stress and threat and like overwhelm, right? It's like a big tub of water, and you got, you know, relationships and work and, you know, training and all these different things that are faucets, right? That are filling up, and there's a hole for the water to go out, right? But once the tub gets full, it overflows. That's like shuts you down, right? So a lot of times people try to shut down the biggest faucet, right? And it's too much. So what are some smaller things that you can attack to not build willpower, to like build success, and then attack that? And like that's, you know, it's kind of like for you to know or for you to decide, like, is that a really big thing that's really tough for you to change? And there's other things that are smaller that you can conquer first before you attack that one, if that makes sense, right? Because when I turn off the smaller faucets, now I have more willpower, I have more energy to tackle the bigger one. Because some people go like, I'm gonna like punch the big one right in the face, and it's too big at that point in time, right? So what are the things that you can attack, you know, first? Now, and the thing is, there's nothing wrong with going like, hey, every time I feel the need to chew, okay, 2-3 pieces of gum. Does it work for you? Hey, we just said, like, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, right? But you can constantly address it and try something new. But no matter what, the habit loop is created. You feel something. A certain cue is like, maybe you're bored, right? The boredom is a huge one. I get bored, start chewing. All right, I'm doing something. I feel better, right? It's like even people that eat chips and stuff. Like, it's proven they like crunchy stuff. It's not even chips, right? You give them kale chips, same shit. Cool, right? They like crunchy stuff. So these are the things that like you kind of have to dig deep and be like, all right, what did I feel right before I started chewing? All right, let me try gum. And the thing is, sometimes it's so crazy because you'll be like, wow, okay, that feels good, that feels better. Is this really that easy? Yeah, see, it's simple, but it's not easy to break it because maybe you've done it, 10,000 times, right? So think about those things, right? What can you replace the routine with when you feel the way you feel before you chew? 1. 2, what are other habits that you may be able to address that are smaller and not as big to take on that you can complete and be successful with before you take that on? So that would be my two pieces of advice there. Anything else?
I have a question about the whole cue routine reward
Mm-hmm.
thing. So, for me personally, my cues tend to be around. So I get the whole thing about goal setting.
Yep.
But then, like, let's say I start menstruation.
Yep.
For a week, I'm on my diet, everything's, and I have these expectations on what I expect my results to be.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not, whether it's a little bit or a lot off,
Mm-hmm.
then for me that's a cue. And then I end up throwing the baby away with the bathwater, right? It's like, oh well, shit, I did all that,
So
didn't get what I wanted, and then I start over again, and I find myself going in this loop.
I understand what you're saying. That's it's a great question, and it actually happens a lot, right? So 2 things is, right, if you ask yourself, see where your focus is on that, your focus is on results, right? But if you change the focus from the results to the process, things start changing. If you looked at that checklist, right, and your checklist that week was like 80%, that's success. Now results, here's the thing, I could go into a lot of different things on what, whether you're what your expectations are now. But if you set expectations for your compliance, for the process, you'll start winning, guaranteed. Because then it's not like, right, you're not judging the scale, you're not judging this or that. You're judging how well you're doing with the things that you set yourself out to do, right? Because guess what? In a month, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, man, if your checklist is 80, 90% full, if you don't get the results that you want, or like there's going to be a lot better than it's been, I'll be very, very surprised. So always bring it back from like, don't focus on the results, focus on the process. Cool? Right. Cody, you got a question for me, buddy? You look like you got something. I got to call you out. Yes, dear.
This might be a little bit too specific, but as far as setting small goals,
Mm-hmm.
how long do you usually wait before you start adding stuff on? There's a website that I used to go to when I was trying to stay on top of keeping my house clean. It's called quietly.com.
Mm-hmm.
And each day she gives you a habit. You do it for like 2 days. Then the next day she adds something, so you do the original habit. Then she adds something, and then it like continues like that for a month. Where she adds
I would say that that's way too much.
Okay.
So if you, people say that the habits take 21 days. That's actually bullshit. It's like if I tell you to drink water every morning, you can do that in 2 weeks. Create that habit. If I tell you to start waking up earlier, that's actually like 10 different habits. You got to go to sleep earlier. No, it is. It's true. It's a lot of different habits. And so if somebody goes like, hey, I'm going to give you one habit one day and then the second habit the other day, listen, it's a great fucking app, but that's not happening. I'm just saying, like science, it's very, very difficult to do that because habits they do take time, right? If it's too much, it becomes overwhelming. It's threat, and I talked about threat in the Vigor seminar. What happens, right, when there's threat? It's fight, flight, or freeze, right? It's too much stuff. You're going to react in some form of way, which is going to be either not doing anything, right, or revolting, getting angry, getting stressed out, whatever it may be. The too much, too fast stuff is very, very prevalent because everybody's like, if I do more, right, I'll get better results for sure, right? There's no way, right? I just do more. And it's not true. I do more of less, I would say. Right? It's the fastest way to getting results is going slow. I know it sounds weird, but it's like if you can keep 1 or 2 habits, but they're pretty significant in what you do. Because, hey, if you start your day different, it really can't, start your day not stressed out and positive and read a book and start it with a smoothie if somebody was eating, cereal every time. They're going to, feel better, lose weight, not be as stressed when they get to, it can shift your whole day. It really can. But if you get up and it's like, shit, I'm late, you know, fast food real quick, go in a car, pissed off, traffic, I'm late to work, I'm stressed out, this person pisses me, like it just builds on it, you know? And that's where I say like, hey, you do got to take it back. Like adding a habit a day is way too much, right? Now, here's the thing, you know, there are people that are different. You know, it shows that like people with like severe ADHD do very well with like tons of structure, right? I think that I'm kind of like that. I do better with big deadlines, right? So, you know, why do I finish this presentation like a minute before I walk out? I wonder why, right? Because it gives me a like a thrill. Like if I finish it a week early, man, what's the fun in that, right? So it depends. It does depend. Like and this is where kind of like awareness comes into play. And that's why like I love journaling, because it's like, hey, you know, what are you like, right? There are like the 7% of people that I said they can do more than 3 habits at once, A-type personalities, they can, right? They're very, give me this, and they can do it, right? But you gotta pick, like if you've done that 10 times and it hasn't been successful, that should kind of like ring a bell and be like, hey, let me wean it back down and be successful with what I'm doing, right? Does that answer your question? All right, cool, I want to make sure. I'm gonna kick. Brownie flew over from England. He's like passing out, making me feel like I'm not great at speaking, bro. Come on, man. Nah, it's all good.
I got another one.
Yeah.
Now I've been doing boot camp for about 3 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and got great results. When I did the Transformation Challenge, that was a big thing for me. But I was also working out 5 times a week. Now I'm not working out 5 times a week. I got injured in January. Well, I was injured in January, and finally healed up around there, and set my goal again to where I was meeting at, but set a time limit by, it was like, basically it was by the time I turned 40. I failed that goal, and now I'm stuck at a plateau where I lost the weight again, because I gained it throughout the winter time. But then January 17th came around, started feeling better with getting my knee healthier, and now I'm stuck at a plateau. What kind of goal should I set, and where should I focus on?
Here's the thing, like things like transformation challenges, transformations and stuff, that have a deadline of 8 weeks, right? What ends up happening in that time frame, which is great, right? It's great. The question is, what happens after that time frame, right? First of all, right, you get more amped up. You got a goal. You got a time frame. You're upping your training. Training does help, but the reason why in that time frame you get results is not just because of that. You usually become more structured. You're in this community that's very supportive. There's more accountability, right? There's all these different things that are built in. Like the reason why is it so powerful to come and train? Do you ever have to think about your programming? No, right? If you do transformation or semi-private training or anything, you don't have to worry about that. It's done, right? This is the program for you based on your lifestyle, based on what you want to achieve, right? You also get help with nutrition. Now you got to prepare for it, but right? And then all of a sudden you got this motivation and accountability. Hey, and maybe you're about to eat something, but it's like Facebook thingy pops up, and you got the other people in the group going like, hey, this is what I'm eating, I'm feeling great, right? All these things kind of like really help with it. So when it ends, is like, was that long enough to ingrain those habits, right? If you start training 1 time a week less, that's not going to destroy your results. It's usually what are the other things that fell off, right? The nutrition. Did you focus as much on sleep than when we talk about, hey, do your sleep rituals and this and that and the other? So those are the things that you kind of got to look at. Now, sometimes that's why I say, hey, certain habits take longer than 8 weeks. Now, that's why, as much as we do like the 8-week stuff, because it's almost like, people want to be like, hey, I want to get these results in 8 weeks. And yeah, you'll get them. But what happens afterwards? That's why I like lifestyle training. You hang out here for at least a year, guess what? You're a different person. Like it's like you're doing a lot of different things. But yeah, I can give the perfect plan to somebody for 8 weeks, and they'll lose 20 pounds or like whatever. But it's like, can they maintain those habits? Because maybe then they go back to an environment where, negative environment, right? Emotions, let's go out drinking, let's do this, let's do that and the other. So those are like the, when I say the journaling, like seeing what the cues are. When you stop that, what were the cues that made you not go to sleep at a certain time or watch a movie when you could have done some of this and that and the other? not getting up earlier. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm just throwing out examples because obviously I'm speaking off the top of my head. But what are, you know, the environment changes somewhat, and then that environment can influence the old routines. Because one thing that's proven is, like, you know, addictions and habits and things like that, like, in your brain, neurologically, they don't disappear, right? You just create a new one, right? So when we said cue, habit, loop, right? The old habit exists. The goal is to make the new habit so strong that it overpowers the old one. The old one never goes anywhere. That's why people after 2 years, right, or for instance, think about when they say alcoholics, like, never have a drink again, right? Because one drink can take you back into that behavior pattern, right? And, you know, and that's powerful. Now, it's not the same with everything, because if you do ingrain, you know, if you do these steps that we're talking about, where you attach emotions to goals and the things that you do, right, you have a much, much better chance to actually overpower things. All right, thank you guys for coming out. Appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you.
Yes, sir.